Now, I would like to start the presentation from each area. The first presentation will be the Hitachi Smart Transformation Project. Presentation will be given by Mr. Shizuka, Executive Vice President and Executive Officer at CTRO. Good morning, everyone. I am the CTRO of the Smart Transformation Project of Hitachi. My name is Ishizuka. I would like to give you the explanation regarding the Hitachi Smart Transformation Project. During my presentation, I may abbreviate by referring to SDP instead of Smart Transformation Project. Now, let me first of all talk about the positioning of the Smart Transformation Project. We shall transform the group structure into a globally competitive enterprise. Achieving growth and Hitachi's transformation. According to the 2013 midterm plan, transformation, innovation, and global are the main key words. And Smart Transformation Project will drive transformation. As I have already mentioned, to achieve growth in Hitachi's transformation will be the objective. I have become the CTRO from last year. And this is the second IR that I will be in charge of for the coming year. More than ever, I believe that SDP has been accelerating, and we have been able to harvest the results. And within the in-house companies as well as within the group companies, the mindset has undergone significant change. Therefore, today, I would like to convey this very important message to all of you. Now, I would like to talk about the goals of the Smart Transformation Project, SDP. And it is to establish an organization and business functions supporting global growth. We must standardize the operations as well as centralize the operations. Improve the IT platform, which is common for the group. By so doing, we would like to achieve total optimization on an end-to-end basis. The cash as well as cost information that has been accumulated will be utilized by the headquarters company as well as group companies, so that expeditious decision-making can be conducted in management. In terms of the rationalization of indirect operations, we have established the headquarters for the indirect operation reform. Therefore, this headquarters will be implementing the thorough utilization of shared servers as well as reducing costs on a continuous basis. We will continue to review as well as improve the indirect operations. Through this, low-cost common operations will be made possible so that the cost structure can become more efficient for the company going forward. This is the overall structure of the project. We will promote reform and cooperation within the group from an end-to-end perspective. Each of the cost structures listed on the left-hand side, as you can see on the right-hand side, based on the 6 perspectives outlined on the right, reform measures have been implemented. I would like to highlight the major points in these initiatives today. And we have been making preparations to accelerate this from 2015 in the area of process reform. Therefore, the outsourcing as well as process reform will be accelerated going forward as well. Next, I would like to talk about the progress made so far in terms of SDP. In the 2015 midterm plan, in order to achieve the goals, we have been able to achieve cost reduction targets ahead of schedule. For fiscal year 2013, as you can see on the left-hand side, the plan was 100 billion yen. the actual result was 110 billion. Therefore, we have been able to reach the target ahead of schedule. As for fiscal year 2014, the current plan is 90 billion. However, we will strive to achieve 100 billion yen. We shall continue to accelerate the initiatives. And by 2015, we will achieve 400 billion in terms of accumulated basis. Let me talk about the contribution to operating income. We are making a company-wide effort, and everyone is determined. This is leading to the operation improvement as well as creation of investment opportunities for growth. In 2014, the 90 billion will be the plan. And in terms of growth effect, 190 billion. And however, there is 100 billion in terms of lower sale price, and the remaining 90 billion is the benefit of Hitachi Smart Transformation Project. And we will contribute to the 560 billion operating income target, and we will continue to accelerate the efforts of SDP. Now, let me talk about the results so far as well as the outlook going forward. In order to achieve the 2015 midterm management plan, we must implement the measures without fail and achieve results. For 2013, in terms of cost areas as well as functions, we have been able to reform based on the centralized purchasing of direct indirect materials, and this has led to an increment of 10 billion for fiscal year 2014. In addition to the aforementioned measures, we will have a full-scale development of global SEM reforms and modular designs. These will be added anew. From 2015 onward, we shall accelerate the global usage of shared services and indirect operation reform. By so doing, the results will be manifest from a different perspective as well. As shown above, in addition to the cost areas and functions, we shall also deepen the process-focused reforms as well. From 2014, we have been making preparations, as you can see on the right-hand side, shown in pink. We shall continue to promote the process reforms from points to line and plane. As written here, the business process will be standardized, centralized, and we will also implement operational reform and shift to a global business process. I would like to repeat that when we started SDP, as you can see on the left-hand side, production cost, direct material cost, and indirect cost have been the approaches. And we were pursuing the same direction on a company-wide basis, making progress. And this has already shown good results. And in order to deepen this effort in a steadfast manner, we will now also focus on the process reforms as well. This is not just limited to connecting information, but we would like to change the flow, the mindset as well, and the work operations will also change. We would like to implement these process reforms without fail. In terms of project management platform has been created. This should be utilized fully and connect this to business operations in order to improve cash flow. We will enhance the turnover. But in addition to that, when we have a contract with the customers for certain milestones, we have to make sure that the payment will be secured. And we will change the business operations to enable this. That is a type of process reform that we wish to implement. Next, let me talk about the areas. We have to show results without fail in terms of cost areas and functions. These are the progress made so far. The upper half is the production cost reforms. The print board has been produced in 28 locations. It has been centralized now. In 2015, it will be centralized into 8 locations. So integration will take place. For 2014, in Mito print board and the ICS company print board will go to Omega plant. So we will be centralizing on a nationwide basis so that actual results can be achieved. In terms of global supply chain management as well as modular design, the number of participating businesses are shown here. In terms of global supply chain management from 2013, all the businesses are participating for modular design from 2014. All the businesses will also be participating in this effort. For Hitachi Group, has a wide array of business. This is our advantage. In terms of corporate measures, FCM as well as modular design, vehicle can be decided, front runner can be decided. That is how we started out. And the success can be deployed elsewhere. This is not just led by the corporate headquarters, but also the companies will feel that they do not want to be left behind, and they will be motivated to utilize these initiatives. Therefore, a very sound competition is taking place. In terms of direct material cost reform, the global procurement ratio is to be increased, and also the centralized purchasing ratio will be increased as well. Now, for centralized purchasing ratio, we have been conducting in some areas so far, but the CPO, the Chief Procurement Officer, has been identified for each group under the STP. Under this person, group-wide or transcending groups, centralized purchasing has been promoted in the Ibaraki, Omega plant and Tsuchiura plant. Electronic parts will be subject to centralized purchasing. These are some of the initiatives that have been accelerated so far. Now, in terms of engineering strength, not just for buyer, but we need engineering buyers as well. The nurturing of engineering buyers are being promoted today. Now, let me give you some specific examples. Today, out of the cost reforms, I would like to talk about the new initiatives that are showing good results. And business process reforms will also be covered later. First of all, I would like to talk about the value shift, global shift in terms of the value chain. We need to establish an optimal global process to swiftly respond to customers' business needs. The value chain that exists in Japan will be deployed in the best locations, inclusive of overseas locations as well. And the mother plant in Japan for basic design and detailed design can be conducted in Southeast Asia as well as Saudi Arabia. So outside resources will also be brought to bear. Non-Japan Hitachi bases will also be utilized. In terms of procurement, in Southeast Asia, we have a purchasing base. This will not be just remotely controlled from Japan, but front engineering will also be involved in the process. We shall enhance the speed so that we can purchase goods, products that is accurate and low cost. This is the case of power system as well as the infrastructure. We will continue to accelerate this process so that the synergy can be brought about. Next, I'd like to talk about the building of the global procurement scheme. This is the IPO at the very top, International Procurement Office. And within Hitachi, this will take the lead. This will focus on the high value added operations. On the other hand, within the Hitachi Group, as you can see on the left-hand side, we have Hitachi High Technologies, very able in terms of procurement management. We also have Hitachi Transport System that is very skilled in terms of logistics. Hitachi Capital is very effective in terms of payment. We shall combine these operations so that the operation cost as well as supply chain management and cash flow can be improved. Within the Hitachi Group, we will deploy this first, and we hope that this service can be offered to customers outside of Hitachi as well. Next example that I would like to talk about is a scheme to reduce cost, building a global logistics scheme to realize cost reductions, improving fund efficiency. This is an example of China. We have 180 bases and 70 plant factories in China. We would like to bring to bear the economies of scale in China. As you can see on the right-hand side, first of all, the gateway platform will be created. Now, inclusive of ports as well as the warehouse, we will have common joint storage as well as joint international transformation so that we can reduce the transportation and storage expenses. We'll also be implementing the milk run as well within the region. For each region, transportation will have better efficiency. That is the objective of the milk run. This is in the case of Zhuzhou in China, and it will be realized in other regions as well. And the transportation of mixed batches of freight will lead to the reduction of transportation expenses. Cash management will also be improved. We will do this in China because we have many bases. That will be our start. And thereafter, we will expand this to Asia as well as Europe. As for the milk run, it is already up and running. We would like to increase such efforts going forward. Next, I would like to talk about the introduction of shared service to indirect operations. We have already been making headway. As you can see on the left-hand side, globally, we have BPO centers established already. And for overseas operations, as you can see on the right-hand side, the dark area is already in operation by fiscal year 2013 in terms of BPO. Beyond that, it will begin operation from 2014 onward. So we have started BPO overseas. There are three advantages. First of all, a BPO will lead to cost reduction. Second, work governance as well as compliance will be improved for small companies. By utilizing BPO, there will be better transparency, which is adding value. Third, and if there is turnover risk of personnel, it may hinder the operations. But in this case, it will allow common understanding overall. And we will start from fall the BPO for finance as well. And BPO will be enabled for payroll calculations as well. So we will be able to show actual results in terms of the efforts made in indirect operations. Next, I'd like to talk about IT cost reforms. We must reduce regular IT expenditures to secure funding for strategic IT investments that will aid growth. From 2011 to 2015, we would like to reduce the regular IT expenditures by 10%. As you can see on the right-hand side, there are three priorities. One, improvement of software procurement conditions. Second, optimization of IT assets. And third, modification of sourcing formats. This is, again, area where economies of scale as well as advantages of Hitachi can be brought to bear. We would like to increase strategic investment as a result of this. Next is group structure reforms. So we have to strengthen strategic headquarters functions and optimize the group structure to achieve growth as One Hitachi. As you can see on the upper side, the strengthening of strategic functions, we have been implementing headquarter reforms, which we announced in fall. We will realign headquarters to specialize in strategy formulation and promotion. Appoint a CXO for each role and function. A shift to a workforce of 600 people. We are making headway. This is not just for headquarters, but it will also be deployed for other group companies as well. These experiences will be brought to bear elsewhere. In terms of optimization of the group structure, infrastructure systems business is shown as an example. Now, we will be making a realignment of business to sharpen competitiveness, and we have established the Hitachi Industry and Control Solutions as of April in order to achieve this goal. This type of initiatives is becoming more active. In the past, we were talking about reducing the group companies and talking about the number of group companies that will be reduced. But currently, we need to have realignment in order to enhance our competitiveness. In some cases, we might have to enhance scale as well. For 2012 and March, we had 340 companies domestically, and 2014, 283. That's a reduction of 57, with 83%. Overseas, in many ways, we are making expansion in various countries. So group structure reform will not just be dictated by numbers, but it will be based on how we can become more competitive, and we are making steadfast efforts to achieve this goal. Next, I'd like to talk about the intra-group transaction reforms. One example will be explained here. On the left-hand side, there are intra-group transactions that are taking place. If it's between company A and B, the procurement side, and there will also be sales side, subject to negotiation. That is the regular style. But within the Hitachi Group, there are many prevailing transactions. For example, company A may have a subsidiary B, and there could be a transaction between the two on a consolidated basis. There could be eliminations as well. We must review these businesses in further details. As you can see on the right-hand side, we shall standardize transaction patterns, simplify work processes, IT-based automation, and review the roles of related departments. So transactions have been systemized, and this will be reflected in resource allocation as well. We have done this for information, and we'll do this for other businesses as well. Now, I would like to talk about the advance to the process-focused reforms, the overall optimization of operational business and work processes using IT. The vision is shown on the left-hand side. Achieve optimal operations according to business characteristics based on a group-wide platform, and directly link management targets and frontline operations. As I mentioned earlier, by function reforms have been implemented, as you can see in B. On an end-to-end basis, the company structure has changed, and the solutions to customers and response to customers have also undergone reform as well. From the point of view of customers who want to be evaluated highly, we want to make sure that excellent operations are embedded here in Hitachi. Specifically, measures will be implemented going forward, but for example, project management platform will be discussed, and the work process will be subject to reform, not just by the functions, but by flow. We would like to implement change and accelerate the effort going forward. Let me summarize. In terms of the SDP, we would like to achieve the targets and contribute to the goal of Hitachi for 2014. 90 billion will be increased by 10 billion to achieve by 90 billion will be increased to 10 billion. At 2015, cumulative basis of 400 billion result will be the target. And SGA will be reduced to 20% by 2015. Last sheet. We would like to thoroughly embed the smart transformation mindset within Hitachi. We are holding town hall meetings, and every 3 months there is information exchange amongst the leaders of the in-house companies. We are also utilizing posters. There are 2 types of posters that are being utilized to embed SDP from the very top to the very bottom. We want to make sure that the mindset will be instilled. And as the CTRO, I'm convinced that we are making progress. So we would like to continue to harvest good results going forward. Thank you.
Let us move on to questions and answers. From SMT Headquarters Project Management, Murayama will answer the questions instead of the presenter. Please state your name and affiliation before asking your question. Any questions, please? I see a hand in the front, in the corner.
ご説明ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much for the presentation. Question. I have two major questions. Question number one. Cost restructuring from a process perspective, that's what you mentioned newly. And we've seen the numbers up to 2015. But 2016 and onward, how will that impact cost restructuring? Is there any room left for further improvement? If possible, if it could be quantitative in giving your answer, I'd appreciate it. So that's my question number one. Should I continue with my questions? Yes, then. My second question is as follows. Listening to your presentation, 400 billion yen of target, and you said that steady progress is made toward that goal. MTP operating a profit margin of 7%, that is what you're aiming at, but it's still lower than competition. So given that, how will a cost structural reform contribute to enhancing operating margin? In terms of the cost structure compared to your global competitors, are there any areas where you are inferior, where you may be able to make improvements? Well, thank you for your questions. Answer. First, with respect to process reform, SMT is a reform that has a limited time frame. But in terms of cost structural reform and cost restructuring, I think we need to go beyond SCP to further push for cost restructuring. We are now discussing what the next initiative should be. Once we decide on it, we would like to share that with you. And we have made major progress in the cost areas. We've seen tangible results. And of course, we've been looking at processes all along. But as we looked into cost areas, we have been made strongly aware of the importance of tackling processes as well. By changing the processes, we will be able to harvest even more fruit. That is what we feel. So, of course, in the next phase, we would like to share with you what the specifics are going to be. So we still see room for improvement. When it comes to direct materials, we will continue with our cost reduction efforts, and there's harvest to be had. But we need to change the flow and the process internally and change roles and responsibilities. And the mission and the targets for each individual will also have to be changed. By so doing, we believe that we will be able to make more achievements. So in terms of SGA, we would like to bring it to 17-18% by 2018. So together with SCP, as we have already announced, global performance management is underway. So HR global grading and evaluation, that is also underway in parallel. So that KPI will be run organically with SCP and other restructuring efforts. And by so doing, we would like to drive competitiveness and reduce costs further. So that's my answer to address your second question.
Next question, please. question. I have two questions. There is going to be some overlap with the aforementioned question. In the beginning, you said that you want to compete against the global top companies. That objective has been outlined. In terms of STP, currently, against the overseas competitors, in terms of reform, are there areas that you have not yet embarked upon? If there are any, please elaborate. And with such initiatives, can we expect further efficiencies? Or do you think that everything has run its course and results will be manifest gradually going forward? Is that the expectation we should be having? Are there any areas that have not been tackled yet? That's the first question. Question two. Now, from your point of view, Mr. Ishizuka, through reform, you have been analyzing the company. But in terms of other than cost structures, in terms of business structure, do you think that there are further improvements that can be enjoyed? In the area that you are not in charge of, do you see any areas where improvement can be made? This is not the cost transformation project or SCP, but are there any areas in terms of business structure? Is there inefficiencies that you have identified that will not able you to reduce costs further, even if effort is made? If you are not in charge of STP, if you were driving the business, what would you do? What would you like to see implemented? Answer. To your first question, to compete with global top companies, in terms of the difference we have at the moment, I'd like to answer in two ways. As I already explained today, in terms of BPO, in terms of indirect operations outsourcing, for these activities, we are lagging behind. What the Western companies have realized, we have to, compared to that, we have to accelerate further. We should not just outsource the functions, because that would be just one-off, but rather we should implement BPO and transform the process at the same time. So internal strength must be brought to bear, and partner strength must also be brought to bear together to accelerate the process. Japanese companies are beset with challenges, but we are lagging behind. And there are lessons to be learned from that. So based on that, I would like to make improvements. Now, second area, up until March, I was in charge of power systems. And so I'm looking at both sides, the power systems as well as STP. And I'm glad that I am in this position now. Because if you take the corporate point of view, what is visible from there and what is visible in terms of the business on the ground are different. Therefore, so far, we have been trying to absorb the views of corporate, and we're thinking of ways to change Hitachi. But from last year, these efforts have been intensified, especially for BPO. The business result, the settlement has been standardized. In terms of management accounting, it has been done by each company. And management accounting improvement will have to be made. Otherwise, the finance people's business work may be reduced, but the people involved in business cannot accelerate their work, and the cash will not be visible. So within the end-to-end process improvement, we must also make efforts in that area. We must also take this on. And the corporate side and the in-house company side must work together to achieve this goal. And we already have this process in place. It will take effort. But by so doing, I think we can accelerate the effort. and have expeditious decision-making and generate more cash flow. Therefore, I'm very determined to achieve this goal.
Any other questions, please? The next person, the person seated next, please. Question. Thank you very much for the very detailed presentation. And I would like to ask the following. There's one major question that I would like to ask. You have given all the details in your presentation. You have revenue of close to 10 trillion, and you're talking about only 1% of that amount. Of course, it's important to accumulate efforts in that manner. Look at Toyota, they're making massive efforts. Of course, they are in a different industry. It's hard to compare apple to apple. But if you're talking about process reform or process restructuring, I would expect a different number, not 90 billion, but hundreds of billions, given the size of your revenue. So considering the overall size of your business, it seems small. Your reform initiative appears small. And as I said, it's important to accumulate those smaller initiatives. But wouldn't there be more drastic efforts that can be made? That's the simple question that I have. I wonder if my thinking is right. If you could share your thoughts on that. Answer. It's a question that's difficult to answer, but what I'm explaining today is a summary of what we're doing. And actually, in each business, how can a cost structure be changed? I talked about the three perspectives and how can they be applied to each business area. Well, we have to be very meticulous, specific. We have to break it down to all the details. This is something that you have to do by when. All those specifics have to be shared with each individual. So not just the overall fuzzy target for the whole company. We need to cascade that down to each individual. So that's the top-down approach. And there's also a bottom-up approach where people can contribute suggestions and ideas. That is what business process reform, cost reform is all about. And so we need to permeate that to the very bottom of the organization. Of course, bottom up alone is not enough. At the top level, management level, we have to introduce frameworks to change the business structure. We need to communicate to people that we are changing this much. So that's why we're trying to change the way in which we do business at the very forefront of each business. That poster gives that message exactly. So we need to do things both ways. It's a company. We have a company with more than 100 years of history. In the past, for many years, we ran up losses. It's true. But Hitachi is changing, and it's all right to change things at Hitachi. People are starting to understand that. And you may find the number to be small, but we would like to make sure that we achieve the number and show that we can achieve even more or harvest even more. And this is the right approach. One additional question. So process reform, that is what you are emphasizing. In terms of the amount, financial amount, how much impact is there going to be? There's a breakdown in direct material versus indirect and process. It's hard to see. Well, you are changing the direction because with the original initiatives, it's hard to meet the target. Or could you give us some qualitative ideas as to how much is going to be achieved? Answer. Well, we have factored in process reform initiatives. And by so doing, we have looked at direct and indirect materials costs, and as well as costs pertaining to the supply chain. And we have only factored in part of the numbers that we will see going forward. And I did strenuously emphasize process reform. And the reform in 3 areas. We have seen quite tangible progress, but as we've done so, we've realized that by changing the process in a real way, we will be able to harvest even more food and results. That's the awareness that we have developed, and that is why we want to accelerate this effort in the next phase. So reforming each area, that can be done by each in-house company or each business area, although it's not easy. But when it comes to process reform, it's almost like a cultural revolution. You need to change the culture as well. So more efforts are necessary. And we would like to make earnest effort in accelerating the initiative. And we hope to show you better, more interesting numbers. Question, just a rough ballpark figure, please. Is it 100 billion, 50 billion? When a system integrator says that they're going to pursue reform, but how much is the question they're going to ask us? So with these efforts, how much additional cost reduction can be achieved? Answer. So in terms of SGA, we would like to bring it down to 17 to 18% by 2018. We would like to accelerate efforts so that we can achieve that number. Understood.
We are now ready to take the last question.
Presentation. I have a question related to slide number 8. So the cost reduction this year is estimated to be 163 billion yen. The benefit of Hitachi Smart Transformation Project is 90 billion yen. Where is the rest coming from? Because it is a significant amount. Are there any other cost reduction initiatives in the group? Thank you.
今はシートの8。今
Thank you for your question. Answer. Regarding the Smart Transformation Project, the gross amount is 190 billion, and that is expected. That is a gross amount. However, as you can see of the third arrow from the left, there is a lower sale price of 100 billion. And therefore, the net effect will be 90 billion yen for the Smart Transformation Project. That is how you should interpret these numbers. I hope I have been able to answer your question.
If you look at the last arrow, the last yellow arrow pointing up, the cost reductions are 163 billion yen. And I assume that the benefits from Hitachi's Smart Transformation Project are included in there. If that is the case, where is the rest of the cost reduction coming from?
You talked about the cost reduction of 163.2 billion. Now, actually, the 192 billion, 90 billion is included in the 163.2 billion. And in the cost, so there are other factors that will offset the impact of a Smart Transformation Project. Therefore, that is the reason why cost reduction of 163.2 billion is mentioned here. But now, in terms of disclosing the Smart Transformation Project, from the gross benefit of Smart Transformation Project, we have to also consider the lower sales prices. And the benefit of Hitachi Smart Transformation Project is 90 billion as a result. That is what we are reporting. So the 163.2 billion is plus 90 billion, and there is also subtractions made, and the total is 163.2 billion. So there are pluses and minuses, coming to 163.2 billion. I hope I've answered your question.
それでは、これをもちまして、
With this, we would like to bring the Hitachi Smart Transformation Project explanation to a close. Thank you very much.